You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And I am so excited today because I have award-winning, Golden Globe-winning George Chakiris, the legendary George Chakiris, on the show today. It's such an honor to have you on the show, and it was such a pleasure meeting you at the Turner Classic Movie Film Festival, and you were
Yeah,
so gracious.
thank you. Listen, I'm glad to be able to talk to you. Thank you so much. It's nice for me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I read your autobiography, and what an exciting life you've had.
Say that again.
What an exciting life you've had.
Gosh, I guess so. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess I have because I've got to work with on lots of good things and with a lot of really wonderful people, and just socially in the business over the years, you meet so many wonderful people. So it is exciting, and it's I have to remind myself of that and I've had such a great time. I really have. Yeah.
You've had a blessed life, really. It just seems like everything in your life just sort of fell into place without you necessarily planning on it. And that's what's so great. The serendipity of your life is what I found absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Because I so often performers have to keep searching for opportunities and things like that. I did do that, but I didn't have to do it much because I got so lucky. It's just circumstance was that, and circumstance uh, uh, everybody is a victim, I'll say, to circumstance, and sometimes circumstance is good, and sometimes it's less good. But I was generally overall pretty lucky with circumstance. I was.
You really were. I love this quote that you have in your book. No matter how dark the moment, love and hope are always possible.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful quote and
Thank
so
you.
true.
I like that. As I recall, it was Larry King asked lots of people for a quote, and that was the one I came up with, and it's still there, I guess. It's nice. I like it. Yeah.
I do too. I
And that's
really,
true.
it is true. It is true. It really is so much to get into. By the way, happy belated birthday. Your birthday
Oh,
was two
wow.
days ago.
My God, yeah, I forgot about that already too. Yeah, that's another birthday.
And George, do you mind telling the audience how old you are now?
Sorry.
Do you mind telling the audience how old you are now?
I'm 92.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I know. I don't know how that I feel. I don't know what I feel when I say it. I get scared, I think.
Don't be scared. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And you're still going strong. So
Yeah, so far, touch wood. Yeah, yeah.
that's
There's longevity so far in my family, so maybe I'll be lucky that way too. I hope. Yeah.
well, I wonder too, because you've danced your entire life. You
Yeah.
started off as a dancer. Do you still continue to dance to this day?
No, I haven't taken class the way I used to. I don't know why or how I sort of stopped it. I didn't notice it when it was happening, but I go to the gym not as often as I should, but exercise is important to me. But exercising in a dance class and a ballet class is like the best. It's a complete physical workout that with stretching and strength and rhythm and everything, and it's a great way to move your body.
Yes, and I think that's the secret to your longevity. I think
Yeah,
exercising is
yeah,
definitely, and in your case for sure.
yeah. Well, and I think people in today's world too, because let's see, when I started, it was like 1951 or 52 or something, and people who exercise now, even in ballet companies, even in serious dance companies, have access themselves to different kinds of exercise, like Pilates and so on, that didn't exist for me when I began. But my point is that now people who are serious about exercise have different methods and one helps the other. So there's a lot more available to them.
Yes, there is. Well, let's dive into your amazing, wonderful life. You started off as a young when you started off as a young man and you were watching movies, did you ever imagine at that point when you were sitting in that dark movie theater watching your very first movie, which I cannot remember what it was, but maybe you do, and you made the decision that this is something you wanted to do? Did you ever imagine your life would become the life that you've had, this extraordinary life?
Well, as a kid going to the movies, speaking for myself, I'm sure speaking for lots of young people, I didn't know theater existed. All I knew was movies that were we lived in Tucson, Arizona. So movies were available, but as far as I knew, the theater wasn't. So I fell in love with the movies and that wonderful world of imagination. And uh, I, I lived kind of for going to the movies. That was the thing that really I loved it so much. But I had no idea. Uh, I was too young to know anything really. But in time, here's another lucky circumstance. In high school, there was a girl that I was crazy about, Joan Scanlon. She was a dancer, and she told me about a ballet studio in Hollywood called the American School of Dance. That was on Hollywood Boulevard. And she told me that Sid Charisse and Leslie Caron took class there. Well, that's all I had to hear. And so I took the train. I watched a professional class. I got a job working the makeup company downtown, and I just it was a lucky beginning. Yeah.
It was a lucky beginning. You have worked with some of the greats, though. I mean, you worked with Marilyn Monroe, so I want to hear some stories about Marilyn Monroe, Judy Garland, Katharine Hepburn, obviously Jerome Robbins, Gene Kelly, Rosemary Clooney, Debbie Reynolds, Vera Ellen. I mean, Natalie Wood, Rita Moreno, Richard Beymer, Shirley Jones, many, many, many
Uh,
others.
yeah.
But what was the when you were on the set for with Marilyn Monroe? You were in Gentleman Prefers Blondes, and you were in the number Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. Was that a pinch me moment when you realized you were performing with Marilyn Monroe at that point in your career?
Well, at that point, I was what, about 23 or something like that. So I wasn't aware of really of who she was at the time. And I think that movie was a important movie in her career that kind of launched her more seriously. When you're working for the choreographer, and it was Jack Cole in that case, and Marilyn always loved him in particular, Jack Cole. But our job was not to get caught up in, looking at people, was to please the choreographer and, do what we were hired to do. So basically, in retrospect, once it was after we'd rehearsed and after we'd filled the number, filmed the number, it was after it was all over and you could kind of relax that you start to reflect back on what it was like. And that's when I started to appreciated what I thought she was like. And one of the things you know, she she was very, very concentrated on her work. When they called cut for any reason, she didn't go to her dressing room. She didn't look in the mirror. She went right back to her starting position to start again, just like we did. So, and she was very quiet. So I never engaged in any kind of conversation with her. But one of my favorite credits is being able to say, I was one of the guys in that number behind Marilyn Monroe.
I know. Wow. Yeah, I just watched White Christmas. I watch White Christmas every year, and
Oh, yeah.
and I love watching you dance in that. Once I knew that you were in that, I began to always watch what you were doing in those dance numbers.
Well, that Christmas made a difference for me too, because in the number that Rosie does called "Love You Didn't Do Right by Me," in that number there were just four of us, so we were visible, and there was a spread in Life magazine on White Christmas, two-page color spread, and there was a picture of Rosie with the four of us around her, and I got a lot of fan mail from that, and it was from that Paramount signed me to a contract. So again, I got lucky.
You did. I mean, I'm telling you how much it's just been amazing how you've just been led on the right journey. So God's really been had blessed you your entire life, for sure, for sure. So I mean, we have to talk about, I mean, West Side Story is one of my all-time favorite films of ever. You know, if somebody had told this little girl who sat in the theater when I was really little watching West Side Story that someday I would not only meet George Chakiris, but then I would have the opportunity to interview him. I would never have believed that. So this is like a
Wow.
little girl's wish come true. So thank you.
Yeah, gosh. Well, you know what, hearing you say that, a young girl who would respond to that film and the theme of that film, because it wasn't entertainment, it was a serious piece. So it speaks of well of you as a young girl
Well,
to
thank you. Well, I always wanted to sing and dance on Broadway, so that was one of my things when I was
yeah,
younger, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So what led to tell us about the story of how you ended up, because let's talk about first that you played Riff.
Yes,
That I find that hard to believe, actually.
I know. Yeah. Most people say that because uh, well, the work for dancers here in Hollywood was kind of, there was less work because of television and things were changing. So that's when I thought, well, what do I do? And I thought, well, I guess I should go to New York. And that's what I did. And I had a couple of friends, one very good friend of mine, Drusilla, my best friend. She had already made the move. So she was living, sharing a space with a girlfriend of hers. So I could stay. I slept on the couch in their living room when I got to New York. So I had a place to stay. I bought a one-way ticket. I couldn't afford. Anyway, I got to New York, and Drusilla and her roommate was called Marianne McKay, and Marianne worked for Roger L. Stevens, who was a huge New York Broadway theater man. So they knew everything that was going on in New York. And what was going on was West Side Story, the original theater production, was just coming to its first year anniversary, and they were going to start a London company as well. So Marianne told me to go to the Winter Garden Theater where West Side Story was playing and asked for Ruth Mitchell, who was the stage manager at that time. So that's what I did. One night at the end of that performance, I went to the stage door and I got to meet Ruth Mitchell, who was very nice. And she looked at me and she said, I think you should read for Bernardo. And that was arranged for me to audition for Jerry for the role of Bernardo. I did that. I went to Jerry was working on Ballets USA at the Alvin Theater at the time, so I saw him during his lunch break, and I was the only person auditioning at that time of the day. Anyway, he was gracious. He was, I think, the world of this man. But then, after I read for Bernardo, he asked me to look at the role of the Riff. So I went back on the wings and looked at the role of Riff and came out and read for Riff. And then he asked me to learn Cool, because in the theater version, Cool is sung by Riff. In the theater, it's sung by Ice, Tucker Smith. It was fantastic.
Right. Yes.
That's such a great number in the movie. I think it's the best number. Anyway, so I learned Cool, and I came back and I auditioned for Jerry probably two more times. And on my birthday, on September 16th, 1958, Ruth Mitchell called me and she told me I had the role of Riff in the production in London. And that day I had 7 checks from my California unemployment, $35 each. So it was a phenomenal,
A
it
good
was a great
birthday.
birthday. Yeah.
A good
And I
birthday.
loved playing Riff. I really did. It was, yeah.
So so then how did you end up auditioning for the movie? And let's talk about that, but then how did that help you end up playing Bernardo? Because you had played Riff. Did that help you in your interpretation of Bernardo?
Well, I don't know about interpretation, but because the producers were auditioning as kids, all lots of young people, and there were 5 of us in the London company who got letters from United Artists saying to test us, and my letter asked me to prepare a scene as Riff and a scene as Bernardo. So one day the five of us were driven out to Elstree Studios outside of London, and we all did our respective tests in the course of the day, and we were on a high, like, wow, because we had heard, we were so amazed that we were being tested because we had heard names like Elvis Presley and Elizabeth Taylor, So we did those tests, and a few weeks later, Jerry called me and said, we liked your test, but we'd like to test you further because you get a leave of absence of a week and come fly to Los Angeles for another test, which I did. That second test in LA, I tested, I read as Bernardo, not, Riff didn't come into the picture anymore. But it all started, I was one of many people considered because I had already been associated with the show for almost a year. So it was just, again, a lucky coincidence, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. So let's fast forward to the Oscars. What was that like? Oscar night. Let's talk about Oscar night.
Wow. Well, that was some nights. That was some night. It's always hard to explain what it felt like, and I sort of decided that if somebody buys a lottery ticket, they really don't expect to win, but they kind of hope that they might. That's what it kind of feels like. And then at that moment when your name is called and you go up to the stage to accept the award. Shirley Jones, who's a good friend, gave it to me. But that's you're like it's very hard to describe that feeling because it's awesome. You're on a cloud. It's an extraordinary. It's a wonderful feeling, of course. It's a high.
Mhm.
Like no other. And the thing that made it especially wonderful was that Rita Moreno, good friends, we both got lucky. So it was a perfect night.
I can imagine. You both gave the history for the history books the shortest Oscar acceptance speeches ever, both of you.
Yeah, yeah. I know Rita kind of laughs about hers too. Yeah. Well, because we've learned since then how people accept awards and they thank everybody, and they go through a long list of everybody who they have to thank. And I it's nice that they do thank everybody like that, but in those days, nobody thought of doing it that way. It was a simpler thing. And in retrospect, I wish I had at least thanked Jerry Robbins and Bob Wise,
Yeah, your
but
mind goes blank, I'm sure, when something like that happens that you were hoping for but didn't expect. So what a great moment. I was blessed last year. I met both Russ Tamblyn at the Turner Classic Movie Film Festival and Rita Moreno last year at the
okay,
Santa Barbara International Film Festival when she was here for a film that she has called The Prank. And I
yeah.
got to meet her twice, actually. She sat in front of me and we talked. And then the next night she had invited me to see The Prank and I got to talk to her again. So, the trifecta here.
Well, and we've all remained. We don't see each other every day, but the West Side Story and Bob Wise, even Bob Wise said the same thing. Uh, we've all remained friends. And Bob said, because the girls always used to take Bob to lunch once a week or whatever they did. And Bob said it's the only movie that he made where everybody remained close friends thereafter. Yeah.
That's
So
wonderful.
there was something about that experience that was exceptional. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Those are exceptional movies. So that bonding and that the fact that you've all remained friends says a whole lot about the movie itself and experience. I want to talk about because one of the things that which was a highlight and besides winning the Oscar and the Golden Globe, was in November of 2012 when you and Rita and Russ Hamlin all had their hand and footprints in front of the Grauman Chinese Theater. And I've been there for a couple of those ceremonies, unfortunately not yours, but
Yeah.
Talk about that and also why it was so significant for you, that, the early part of your career, why that was so significant.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I keep forgetting that the thing that Grauman's, the forecourt there with all those famous prints and stuff. Taking class, my first class out of again was at the American School of Dance. It was on Hollywood Boulevard, and there were rooming houses on. That's all changed now, but rooming houses a little bit further down the Hollywood Boulevard. And I rented a room in a rooming house, and I used to clean the studios and wipe the mirrors and sweep the floors at the end of the day at the school. And then I'd walk home and I would pass Grauman's Theater every night, and I'd look at these prints all by myself. But I mean, isn't how fantastic is it to not only get an Oscar, but to do that too? It's amazing to me. It really is amazing to me, and wonderful, But it's thrilling. It's thrilling.
Yes, you're immortalized even more so by having your hand and footprints there for generations to walk by
And
and
also
see.
the likelihood of anything like that happening to anybody is so rare, I guess. It's just, again, I got lucky.
Yes, you have had a charmed life. Well, and I know you've gone into jewelry making, too. You went from the silver screen to making silver jewelry. So can we
Yeah.
talk really quickly about that and where people can purchase some of your jewelry?
Okay. Well, I have a hard time how I started. I don't remember, well, I remember how I started, but I don't remember why I started. But there's a wonderful school here in Los Angeles, at Barnesville, that has courses in sculpting, painting, jewelry making, different things. And I went for the jewelry, and I had such a great time. First of all, socially, it was so much fun because there were other people we all were wanting to do the same thing, and I got really interested and taken up with the idea of making jewelry. And in time, I learned technically how to do everything, sculpting, working in wax, soldering, all that stuff. So I was able to, every piece that I have in my collection, the original piece was actually made by me, but not by someone else, just because I learned those technical skills. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful. Well, people
So
can go to
wow.
georgechakiris.com if you want to purchase one of your beautiful pieces. And George, what an honor. And also people, George's autobiography is my West Side Story. It's a memoir. It's an easy read, a beautiful read, and you've had such an extraordinary life. And thank you for being on the show. I feel very honored and blessed to have had a chance to meet you and also to interview you. So thank you so much for taking the time.
I feel the same. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Take care. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too. Thank you.